We need a photo with that in it, though. Because that's just cool.
He's like, can we just do this?
Nah, not at all. So my favorite part is how we all sound with these microphones.
Nice. We need to pull it closer.
Yeah, the closer we get, the better it sounds. And
Yeah.
poor Lori's getting pulled everywhere. There we go.
Not just me, apparently.
Nah, man, these tables are everywhere I go. I find a weird way to have a show. I remember my first imaging. It was a table that I commandeered. That's the best way I could say it. I commandeered a table, and then PPA is like, "What? Who is this guy?" Like to set up a table in the middle of the expo entrance.
Which imaging was that?
That was Louisville.
And they were like, did you pay for this, sir?
You know, no, I didn't pay for it.
I think I remember your setup. It was out in like that breezeway, right? Where everybody was walking
Yes.
through.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I had
I
a
saw
big
that.
ass dome light back then, and it was fun. It was fun because I was winging it. But I really appreciate both of you, Jeff and Lori, for joining me on the podcast. We met each other earlier, had some great conversations, and I think it would be great to talk about business, the business side of photography, because both of you have an interesting perspective, a vantage point. I have my own perspective as a solopreneur as well. So let's get started.
Absolutely.
Let's talk business. We just wrapped up imaging, and what do you think are some of the areas where the attendees that are here are struggling with?
Man, I think a lot of it is just finding clarity, finding a way to put systems together so they get consistent results. Because as photographers, a lot of times when we are starting out, we're just throwing spaghetti at the wall and seeing what sticks, and we don't really know how to measure success. We don't know if it's luck. We don't know if it's something we did. We don't know if it's our imaging. We don't know if it's our marketing. And it's hard to create repeatable success over and over and again. So that's speaking to people here. I think that's one of the biggest things that I'm seeing that they struggle with is figuring out systems and having clarity to say, this is what I'm going to do this year. This is where I want to go. And this is how I'm going to do it.
I see that. What about from your perspective? What do you see?
I think it's a little bit of, what Jeff said is having that big picture vision, because it's so easy to come to a conference like this and go home with a notebook full of notes, right? And we write pages and pages of stuff. And then you get home and you feel so overwhelmed with what actually to implement. So having that clarity about what to actually move forward with is huge. The other thing that I'm seeing though is like how to connect the dots from start to finish, right? Because if you take how, this one person, this is how they shoot, but this other person, this is how they edit, and this other person, this is how they sell, and this other person, this is the product lineup that they offer, then there's not really like a common thread that runs through all of that. And so figuring out what that is going to look like for your own business, because it's great to follow the gurus and to, learn what different people are doing, but you still have to be able to figure out what that's going to mean for your own business and put it together and have something that's cohesive from start to finish.
Feel in regards, and that's great, by the way. Thank you for that perspective. You take all that business side and then you try to inject a brand, because there's a lot of people trying to emulate, which is understandable. I think we all emulate somebody at some point and then eventually develop our own style. In that equation for business, branding, where do you all feel that plays a part in all of this?
I think Lori taught a pre-con here on Friday, which is day 2. I don't even know. It feels like we've been here for 7 years.
We are on day 72 of Imaging USA 2026.
But a lot of what Lori talked about is brand is way beyond your logos and your color. Brand is your voice message. And so a lot of times photographers are just like, this photographer's doing it this way or that way. And they are using pre-written scripts and they're not exploring their why. They're not exploring their client's why, and they're not creating alignment between their why and their client's why. And so that is your brand. And that's pretty much what Lori spoke on day 2 in an 8-hour pre-con, is understanding your why and understanding your client's why and creating alignment between the two. That is your brand. It's not anything else. It's not what we think it is. It's what everybody else thinks it is. And it's being able to align what your why is with your client's why. And that's super important. And so many people are out there looking at like bags with logos and colors and fonts and things like that. And that's just a visual side of your brand, but your brand is your messaging, your brand is your why, and your brand is how you're going to photograph someone and how you're going to change their life and why that's important to her as a boudoir photographer.
No, that makes sense.
I found too that like as I was, learning more and more about marketing, you'd go to a marketing class and there's always this exercise where you build out your client avatar of like, who is your ideal client? And then, and you make a whole lot of assumptions, right? So my ideal client, I'm a boudoir photographer. So let's say my ideal client is somebody who's, she's 35 to 45. She's, had a couple of kids. She drives this kind of car. She makes this much money, whatever. And they teach you to think about client first. But the longer that I've been doing this, I've started realizing that I attract the clients who are interested in what I have to say, which sounds sort of egotistical, but as an artist, I bring my own unique perspective to boudoir, right? As photographers, we do what we do for a million different reasons. And my particular why as a photographer is, based on helping a client feel amazing and feel beautiful in her own skin. So if I'm an outspoken artist on that, throughout my website and my social media, then I'm going to attract clients who resonate with that, right? So instead of putting, the client avatar first, it's really about understanding my own message and what I want to bring to the table. And then I will attract clients who value that. And I think that's a different message than what we've all heard about, building the avatar first.
No, I do agree. That is definitely a different message. And I was talking to the folks earlier in regards to like the whole Evoto thing. And I think what it comes down to is that as photographers in today's world, we need to focus on, and you would know this very well as yourself, you should focus on the experience. We're living in an age where computers and machines are able to create and replicate what we do. That's what's happened. ChatGPT can do it, etc. It is our prerogative as artists, I think, now to distinguish the difference between work created by us, the human, but more importantly, the experience you give that person, because we go places and we remember how it made us feel and maybe how the day was or how things smelled or how we were treated. As a boudoir photographer, I hear this a lot because I've interviewed quite a few of them and they focus, it's not even the photograph. The photograph is a byproduct.
Yeah.
It is a byproduct of it.
It's almost like you were in my class today.
I've learned a lot from a lot of artists, understanding that experience, boudoir in particular, how you make them feel, especially with how vulnerable it might be to some of them. They remember the experience and that's why they come back for it, because they enjoyed how you made them feel. You made them feel amazing. And in today's world, as photographers, if you want to stand out, your brand, it's also how you make them feel.
Absolutely. And, like what Lori was saying, like, it's almost like you were in her class today, and I'm going to let her tell the whole story. But, Lori has figured out a way to sell that is not selling, it's guiding. And it's being able to tie a why and an emotion to a product. And instead of just saying, here's my product lineup, here's my packages, she's been able to take the client's why and their story and tie it to a product. And so that's what she talked on today. And so tell them a little bit more about that.
I mean, basically, it's you almost took the words out of my mouth. It's eerie. Because what I was telling people in my class today is that boudoir in particular is an experience, right? And, we're bringing people in and we're doing hair and makeup and they're doing wardrobe changes and they're having these photos done. And I show the back of the camera a lot, during my sessions, because I want them to see the photos as they're happening and know that they haven't been, liquefied and photoshopped and like, this is how they really look, right? So they're leaving the studio on an emotional high. And then at that point, when they come back in later that day to buy their products, the products are almost a souvenir of that experience. So those products are designed to help them relive and remember the experience that they had and how they felt, having their photos taken. Sorry, the dish is rattling.
But it will be all gone.
Throwing me off a little bit.
Give it a second. We'll put a pause here.
Okay.
We'll go ahead and put the sponsors right now, which is the Outspoken Artist is sponsoring this podcast. That's it. The free agent.
That's it. That's a sponsor list.
All right, hold on. Got more dishes behind you. It's like a Man, those poor ladies are being so careful with all those dishes.
It's like that app that you used to, people would listen to where it puts an echo on, and then while you're talking, you're supposed to try and hold a coherent sentence.
Yeah.
Yeah, it was like that. I was like, I can't even figure out what I'm trying to say
And
anymore.
we're on the last day of imaging, and
Right.
we're all sleep deprived,
Well,
living
there's
off
that.
like coffee and Visine.
But like with the earphones on, it's like there's a little bit of what? Well,
I was like, all right, hold on. We're talking about the experience in Boudoir and the reason why they come back
and the products
for the like a souvenir.
Yeah. And so, you want them to have these products so that they can remember how they felt during the session, so that they can remember how, beautiful or strong or powerful they looked. And so, yeah, I mean, it's exactly what you're saying, is that the photos are almost a byproduct. And the interesting thing is the clients don't necessarily understand that until they're there, having the experience, right? They think they're coming in for photos. What they're really coming in is for a change in how they view themselves and that whole experience. And then they take home the photos as like a permanent reminder of that.
Absolutely. And think headshots, right? Like
Sure.
the headshot world. I think there's an expectation for most headshot photographers that they're like, all right, I'll stand here, I'll take my picture, blah, 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 move on, go on. And then you have other photographers out there. I don't know your system, Jeff, but
Sure.
I'll tell like myself, Gary, very much more, we're directing, right?
Uh-huh.
It is what it is. You're directing. And it's not so much about the picture. It's about like, we're going to try to make you feel great.
Exactly.
That's what it is. I don't know about you, but for me, whenever I hear that's the best picture that's ever been taken of me, it's like this little high. It's dope.
Absolutely.
It's better than a like button anywhere. Like that doesn't give me a dopamine high, but somebody telling me that this is the best picture that anybody's ever taken.
Sure.
It's just, it feels great because I'm
Absolutely.
like, I want you to feel great about yourself. And if we can do that from like headshots, something that's boring,
Right.
I think it was Gary that said we're the dentist of photography.
I know.
It's, if we can do that with that genre,
Yeah.
that's an experience. And you do that with a client, and then the client is like, we want them. I get booked again and again because now the company knows me. The employees know me. When it's time to do their new headshot every single year, it's Giancarlo.
Yeah.
We love him. So they get in front of my camera and they're like, yeah. Chin out. It's not, they already know. Like, hold a sandwich down here. Like these ridiculous things that I would come up with. And then the new employees are like, what the hell is the sandwich they're talking about? Yeah. It's
Wait,
just,
I kind of want to know.
it's like you pretend you're holding like a giant sub down here and it opens up your shoulders and you stick your chin out and down and it just gives you something to do.
Yeah.
And
I graduated from the school of Gary Hughes as well. And so, Gary, thank you for everything. Seriously, dude. But one of my favorite things that he does is like, give me your best, hey girl, hey. And dude, I'm telling you, people just, they're like, what did you just say? And the expression on their face is hilarious. And so you'll have someone in there and be like, all right, seriously, here's what I want you to do. I want you to look right in the camera and I want you to give me your best, hey girl, hey. And like, it just gets such natural reactions from them. And, I've landed multiple contracts for entire firms because of one person I photographed, and they go back and they say, man, this headshot's amazing. Who did it? And then next thing I know, I photographed someone else, and then I have a contract for all their new hires, which is amazing. I went from being a wedding photographer to a full-time headshot photographer in 12 months just by doing that.
amen, man.
Yeah.
Again, the experience. That's what we need to do as photographers.
Make something that is as awkward as a headshot fun and inviting and personality, and infuse that into it, and then you will just blow up from there.
It ties back to the business,
Yeah,
right?
absolutely.
If you're going to be dealing with either a client or a corporation, make them want you not because of your work. I mean, take your trainings, learn lighting, learn composition, deliver a great product, but more importantly, deliver a great experience, because otherwise you're going to have a tool that'll probably do what you do.
Exactly.
Because if it's supposed to be transactional and they don't see anything beyond just a photograph, why should they go with you?
Yeah. And then moving into the entire team, headshots can be created by AI, but consistent team and branding photos cannot.
Yeah.
Yet, at least I don't know.
Yeah, no, in the case of like that group that I have every single year, they already know my personality. They already know what they're getting. They know I'm going to joke around and be ridiculous, but nonetheless, they love it. So what used to be something that would dread, like, I don't like how I look because I'm overweight or whatever it might be, or perhaps they don't like something about them. When they see the photo of how they looked, now they're actually looking forward to it.
Exactly.
Something that used to terrify them or they avoided, I was able to get them comfortable enough to be okay with it.
Sure.
And That's my directive, I think, for photographers out there. Focus on the experience, no matter what kind of photo work you do, because
For real.
that's what we need to do.
Yeah.
Now, I'm curious about both of you in regards to 2026. What do you guys got going on for this year?
I think for us this year, one thing that we have done, we stepped into the vendor world. Obviously, when you're a photographer, you're at these things and you're educating. Everybody wants to create a product. We created a product. We were vendors for 2.5 years, and we realized that it took us away from our core values of we just want to educate and help. We want to be photographers first, run a successful business, and help other photographers grow their business. And so we've kind of gone back to our roots. We didn't want to sell software. We don't want to be a vendor. We don't want to be on the trade show floor selling a product. We want to be someone that's on stage teaching, because we are running a successful business. Because one thing about us that a lot of people may or may not know if they've ever seen us speak is early in our career, before I met Lori, I was running a studio that was doing, over 6 figures a year. And when I met Lori, she moved over to North Carolina, and I decided, hey, there's 2 of us now. I'm going to quit my day job and we're going to be full-time photographers. I lost my house and had to move into the basement of our studio because we almost lost everything, because even though we were making over 6 figures a year, we weren't profitable. And one thing that we learned is that you cannot fix profitability with volume. So it doesn't matter how much you shoot. If you're not profitable with every shoot, you're just digging yourself into a hole. So we ended up spending every bit of the money we made and going 6% in debt because we had to use our credit cards. And so, thanks to PPA and programs like the studio management services they used to have, it's put us on the path to profitability, and it put us to where we are today. And so, for us in 2026, I think it's getting back to our roots and being photographers first and helping other studios grow their business as well. And so that's important to us. 2025 was an amazing year for us. It was one of the best years we've ever had on record. We broke every record we've ever had. And so that feels good to get back to it, because for the last 3 or 4 years as being a vendor, it was kind of tough trying to balance both. We're all three, being a photographer, being a vendor, and being an educator. So I think for us, 2026 is about growing our business and helping other photographers grow their business.
That's great, Jeff.
Yeah.
And Lori, from your perspective, anything for 2026 on the Boudoir section, business section? What about from your perspective?
I think, going through what Jeff talked about, in our early years, that taught us the importance of business. And, going through what we went through in more recent years with, creating this business and then selling it and trying to get back to our roots, it really taught me the value of, alignment is the word that we keep using, of doing something that you're passionate about and that you love, and infusing that throughout every step of your business. And I think for a lot of us, COVID was such it really shifted how we view things, right? Like for Jeff in particular, he realized he didn't want to shoot weddings anymore, because when he had 6 months of not shooting them, he's like, this is great, right? So
I am now a recovering wedding photographer, and I have 0 weddings for 2026, and I am not mad about it one bit.
But much in the same way that COVID changed our worldview for a lot of us, think about, the ripple effect after COVID. We all, we slowed down. We started realizing the value of actually being able to see people in person and being a little bit less digital. That same kind of shift in worldview, I think, happened for us, in the past year or two, with like selling the business and getting back to education and really focusing on our business, is just simplifying things down to its most basic level of like, why are we doing this? Why are we here? What do we want to put out into the world, and operating from that. Sometimes we get so caught up in the woods and the shoulds and what we think success looks like, that it's like we lose the heart of what we're doing. So I'm trying to work that back in, both as a boudoir photographer and as an educator, of like bringing the heart back in, bringing the clarity, the alignment back in, and infusing that through everything that I'm doing.
That sounds phenomenal. I like that. I like hearing that. What do you think is one of the benefits of coming to these things, like imaging or any other conference, for people that are out there?
Yeah, that's a good one. 100% the connections you make. The connections that you make while you're here. Just meeting people. Like even though we have ran in the same circles for many years, and we've been to the same parties and we've known the same people, we officially finally just met this trip,
Yeah.
this one trip,
First in karaoke.
karaoke,
You blew me away, man.
Eric B and Rock M for life. I'm just saying.
Phenomenal in karaoke.
I'm just saying. But, it's things like that of like, you can come to these things for many, many years and you can see the same people over and over again. But, it just takes one time to make a connection.
Right.
And then here we are, on your podcast. And thank you for that.
Yeah.
But, I think that's one of the big things. But when you're also here, there's a ton of education, and it's not just in the classrooms. And I think a lot of people think that, I'm successful, I'm busy, I have a successful studio, there's nothing I'm going to learn when I come to these things. Well, that's far from the truth, because, I went to a class today with David and Whitney Scott, and, a lot of the stuff they were teaching is stuff I've kind of heard, and I don't mean that in a braggadocious way. I just mean that, the things they were teaching are very, very valuable, but there were some things in there that I was just like, oh my God. Texting Lori, remind me this. I'm just sending you this. I'm literally texting her in the middle of class because I'm like, this is genius. And so it only takes a handful for those experienced photographers that are running studios that feel like they're already there and they're successful and they're profitable and they don't need something like this. Man, little nuggets like I picked up in there. If I implement the thing that I learned today in their class about partnering with a charity, if I implement that, I see no reason why I can't add another 50,000 to our studio.
What a phenomenal play with the American Heart Association, right?
Right. Were you in the class? Yeah,
I was.
I was like, holy cow. Like I was texting her that the whole time. I'm like, man, this is amazing.
I had to leave early because I had to get ready to shoot in the expo floor, but that was a very great class. I took pictures, the charitable side.
Yeah.
Nonprofits is my new thing for 2026. You're right. Nuggets.
Yeah. Nuggets. And not only nuggets, but when you're hanging out at the lobby bar and you're chatting with someone, you can pick up so much more information, in-depth education, things that, if I'm chatting with you about headshots and, you are on the same path and we're there, you might do things slightly different than I do, or Gary does, or Dave does, but all it takes is a nugget or two to add another $10,000 or $20,000 to your studio.
Amen. Yeah.
So when you're here, don't just go to the classes, go to the lobby bar. Don't go to the classes and go back to your room. Even if you're a brand new photographer and a beginner, go out and shake hands and kiss babies and meet people, because there's learning 24/7 when you're here. If you're not sleeping, you need to be networking, connecting, and learning. And that is the huge takeaway that I get at every one of these. Why I will always come to these.
I concur. I think mostly us, the people that are here, are willing to talk to people and share. Like if somebody were to ask me, hey, what can you help me with something? I'm like, sure. What do you need help with? Whether it's video, headshots, doesn't matter. I'll help you out. And that's that knowledge. You go to you guys or Gary or Jerry.
Yeah.
They all are open to talk. You just have to be willing to ask.
Yeah.
If you ask and are respectful and not, don't come off like, they'll pick up if you're trying to just like get some free information. Like, trust me, we're clever enough to see through that. But if you're honestly trying to just learn, I think a lot of people here are wanting you to succeed as well, because we know that it can be transformative to your life.
Yeah.
And
I've known Gary for many years, not like on a super personal level, but, on a transactional level, where he would maybe come to North Carolina and speak, or I would see him and go to karaoke or something. But when I decided to launch my headshot brand, I was like, I'm just going to reach out to him and see if he'll give me some nuggets. And he spent so much time with me, just giving me nuggets and advice, which basically allowed me to, within 12 months, replace my income from weddings with headshots. And so now I don't even care to step back into a wedding again. And it's that kind of connections that you make, because why not, right? We're not in the same market. We're not doing the same thing. So he was like, sure, here's what I would do. Give me a roadmap. And it worked, so it's those kind of connections that are very important.
Amen to that. Lori, did you get any questions that stood out to you in your class?
That's a tricky question. I'm trying to think. Were there any that were?
I think there was one girl that had talked about why she thought that she couldn't do boudoir and why she was limited. And then later in the class, Lori challenged them for something. And this lady had said that her mother was beautiful, but she would never wear shorts in public. And so she had never seen her mother wearing shorts in public because her mother was so self-conscious. And Lori picked up on it right away. And it's like, do you think that that's why you won't be successful in boudoir? Did your mom's, kind of like feelings about her body, is that limiting you to be successful in boudoir? Because that has kind of transpired down, and maybe you'll word it a little bit better than I will, but it's things like that. It's being able to have a question come up in class and then dig deeper as to why that question is an issue. And I think that girl, I mean, she was tearing up in the class.
It makes sense. It makes
because
sense.
she was like, it was like a light bulb went off on her. It's like, that's why I'm having a hang up on photographing boudoirs, because maybe my mom's self-consciousness with her body is why I don't feel comfortable with certain aspects of boudoir. And
can I add to that before that?
Yeah.
With you doing boudoir, do you feel that you have to have some form of therapy gene to be able to tap into that? Because that question, it hits hard.
Yeah.
It's like it's very important to someone. So I'm really curious. I would like to hear the answer, of course, but from that perspective, there's definitely therapeutic aspect within boudoir.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm the right person to ask, because my background is actually in psychology.
Okay, well, there you go.
She has a master's in psychology.
So I might be a little biased on the answer to that, but I actually, my undergrad, I started as an art major and took a photography class as an elective. But I didn't know how to make money as an artist. I was like, I don't want to be the poor starving artist. So I went into psychology and ended up getting my master's in that. And all throughout that, art always pulled at me. And so I came back to art by way of photography. And so to me, what I do now is the blend of both. I really do spend a lot of time, talking to my clients about what they want to get out of a session. And I think, nothing that I even went to school for gives me any kind of like formal training on how to be a therapist, because, I studied neuroscience. Like I studied the brain and the structures in the brain that are involved in schizophrenia. So it's not like I'm trained in this, but I have an interest in what makes people tick. And I think it needs to be that more than any formal training. You just have to have an interest in people and how they work. And you have to genuinely care about whether or not what you're doing makes an impact on them. And like you brought up Jerry earlier, he always says, like, to be a better photographer, be a better human. I really believe that.
Right. I
think that's the best way that I'm able to serve my clients in boudoir. But I think that's also the best way sometimes that I'm able to serve, the photographers that we mentor and like the people who came to class, So there, like Jeff was saying, with this one particular client or attendee in the class, in the beginning, we were talking about like self-limiting beliefs. And she said, I just don't know if I'm cut out for this. I don't know if I'm the right person to do this. And then it was probably an hour or two later,
at least an hour or two,
a completely different thread. We were bringing up, I don't know how it
I don't
came
even know
up,
how it came up.
but just she had mentioned, body issues that her mom had. And I was able to put those two things together and feed that back to her. So I think you do have to be able to just listen and be empathetic and be able to read people and be able to hear what isn't being said, pull those threads together and be able to come up with something that's meaningful for them.
No, absolutely. Create that safe space for them to be able to, take the leap in this case.
Sure.
And that connection was, yeah. I mean, that's phenomenal that you were able to pick up on that so quickly. And that person probably is going to be able to do something they thought they couldn't do before. And that's phenomenal.
And that's the goal, is to change people while you're here, whether it's out here or it's in the class or it's, just through connections after we leave the conference.
That's great. That's really great. Let me tell you, both of you are great. I'm glad that I briefly met you.
I know.
Then
right?
we chatted earlier today as well. So that's been great. I know this is not going to be the last time we talk.
I hope not.
Nah. Now you guys are stuck with me. When you go on that book right there, it's kind of like now you're stuck with me. You're gonna get voice notes from me.
Okay.
And
we signed the clapboard. I mean,
Yeah. I have your credit card information, all that good stuff. So
is there RF scanner underneath?
It is.
Yeah, okay.
You didn't even realize it.
All right.
So no, but this has been great. I do want to grab something from you. Can you tell people where they can find more about both of you, your work,
Sure.
any workshops, retreats, things like that? Just that way people know.
Okay. Yeah, go for it.
Yeah. So probably our website is the easiest way to reach out to us. It's myphotoinsight.com. And then from there, there's links to our socials if you want to follow us there. And there's also links to our primary website if you want to be able to see the art that we create. But just, our for photographer and photographer facing stuff is all My Photo Insight.
Yep. And there's a link to our Facebook group on there. And every Wednesday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time, I go live with micro webinars, 30 to 45 minute, just hyper-focused topics on business, sales, and marketing. And it's free. It's just something I like to do to give back. So follow us on Facebook and join in on some of our chats.
That's
very informal. Nothing like half the time I'm just sitting there chatting with people and we're just going over topics. Sometimes I'll have a slide deck, but very informal, just micro topics to keep people moving forward. It's called Momentum, and it's literally designed to just keep people moving forward in their business.
Nice. A lot of value out there you're putting out. And I think the key word is alignment.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
So, thank you both.
Thank
All
you
right,
so much.
thank you.
Appreciate it.
Thank you very much. And now we get to do the traditional photo, but we have to find a photographer.
Okay.
So we'll do that now.
I don't
So-
know if there's
Are
any
there
of
any
those around.
photographers?
Oh, I'll
around
find
here?
a person that works here. I don't care. Somebody.
Okay.
It's a Polaroid.
It's a Polaroid. Awesome. Okay. Thanks.